Welcome to Wednesday Q&A, where you all ask the questions and we answer. We love this. It's like our time together. I'm with my fabulous, amazing co-host, Kristen Williams.
Hey, Laura. Hey, everybody. So glad to be here. I know we've got some great questions lined up. You guys have been sending them in, so we appreciate that. Laura, do you want to start this week?
Yeah, this is from Harley T. She asked, do you think we can move better as we age? This is the age-old question.
I think yes.
Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think I move better now than I did in my 20s. I think as we age, in fact, the way we move should be a bigger focus. We talk about in lit, move better to feel better. And it becomes more important the older you get. And I think we become more intelligent with our movement patterns the older we get because we feel more in our body. When we're younger, we're more distracted. We're more just spur of the moment. We have fewer responsibilities in life. We have fewer issues in our body. Most people, it actually is to me very sad, the number of younger kids by being 20s who are in chronic pain, teenagers. And I do believe it's because of the way we move. So we can absolutely, move better the older we get. And as a physical therapist, it's shocking how people who don't focus on their movement practice become very, I don't want to call it disabled, but unable to balance, unable to bend, unable to do things that really, in many other societies where it's not so chair centric and work centric, people are playing more, people are gardening, people are getting up and down and moving more in their daily life. They move better than many people. And so the number of patients I have that can't stand on one leg for 5 seconds, and this can be in their 60s, which is young, is shocking. And so that's why just recently the big Flamingo Challenge got all of this press and like it was this brand new thing. And as physical therapists, we've been talking about that for years. That research is old, actually, that your ability to balance, and that comes from the core, really decreases your morbidity, meaning like, improves your, your chances of sustaining a fall and coming out of it. So it is never too late to start changing how you move, focusing on moving better, focusing on, your posture. So not just moving better, but standing better, sitting better, changing your habits. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It might be a little more challenging when you're older because you've been doing things a certain way for much longer. However, I think that we have more motor intelligence when we're older. We have more body awareness, interoception, I think, as we get older. We're much more in tune. So have faith. And so to people, who are looking at their parents maybe and are getting worried about the fact that maybe their mom can't get on the ground to play with their grandchildren, have a heart-to-heart conversation. What can you do to help them move better? You'd be surprised at how much people can grow I've seen people in their 80s get better from really being pretty low. Laura, what else do you have to add to that?
Well, absolutely, you can get better, and we see it all the time. The big caveat, asterisk, is you have to be educated how to move more optimally. There is not I really don't like to bucket it in good and bad. That's so boring and binary. It's like, what's more intelligent, more sustainable, makes you more durable in your body and in all of your systems, because movement impacts all of your systems. It impacts your neurology, your brain and your brain mapping. It impacts your cardiopulmonary and your lymphatic and your musculoskeletal. And all of those things really improve with movement. So one big thing is we need to move more often. And like Kristen was saying, younger people who are already showing some evidence of chronic pain or complaints of that, or postural woes and imbalances, it really speaks to the fact that our bodies want to move more often. And we are just being sold a terrible bag of goods that we're supposed to be working at a desk for 8 or 9 hours a day and driving our car, and a lot of sedentary behavior. And so you need to know how to move well, and that's just learning from like Kristen or me or somebody, a lit teacher, or learning from a guide who understands the body. When we move, we primarily want our spine to be neutral. That is a fact. That is the best sustainable functional movement. Is big movement requires your spine to be neutral because it's transmitting energy, and it's going to transmit that energy and hold on to it much more effectively when you're in neutral spine. So you need somebody who teaches you what is neutral spine, what is neutral pelvis, how do you move in your hips, how do you move well in your ankles. Why the ankles need to move well? Because they are the contact point we have with the floor, and we need to move that well so that we don't have to move something up the chain more. When there's any kind of decrease in mobility, something has to take up that if you want to still acquire the movement patterns. And, I was just scooping litter from Mo, and it's like my mom is 81 and she scoops litter from a lot of cat boxes because she's now down to 6 cats, but she's been up to 11. And that is so great. That is so great that she has been doing that. She gets down, she can crouch, she can like stagger leg squat. And if she wasn't doing that, there's not a lot of daily activities set up for older people to do that. They like go from a high chair, like a chair that's elevated, to a toilet that's elevated, to a car that's elevated. And they really need to keep that range of motion in their hips and ankles, because you want to be able to get down on the ground and then up again. So the key is most people have not been taught how to move the most optimally, most sustainably. Optimally is just like something that you're going to be able to repeat. Our hips are made to move trillions of cycles. Our low back, I don't care what anybody says, it's very strong, but it's not made, the muscles attaching to it are very small. The structures attaching to it are made specifically for transmitting energy and force more than a lot of excessive movement. So we just need to understand the body so that we can, age well. Like it's a machine of sorts that we need to take care of, just like we would take care of our car. We need to align it. We need to fill up the tire pressure. We need to keep the lubrication in the joints. And you can do that by moving regularly and moving well. So, and Chris and I both have seen many people who move better after 40 once they've been working with us than they did prior to that. Even though they might have been kind of thinking they were moving better and moving more often, they're actually moving more optimally through the education that we provide. So get with somebody who really understands the body and will teach you.
I love that you brought up just a simple structure, thinking about the way the spine is set up. It is set up to transmit energy. It's set up to stabilize. And the hips are set up to move. That's a ball and socket joint. A ball and socket joint is not inherently stable. The spine is inherently stable the way it is set up. So we need to move where we're inherently mobile. That being said, working on the stability of the hips is crucial, but and then stabilize. And that's not to say that you can't flex. We don't need people walking around like robots with their spine straight all the time. But when you're taking it against a load, like when you have to move, choose, like you said, the most optimal, the most sustainable way is just to simply go with the structure. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's go with our second question here. Was sent in from one of our lit teachers out in Vietnam, Chia Teo. She said, and this was from a while back, so she says, from last week's Wednesday Q&A, this probably was a while ago, Regarding disc herniation, if a client has a slipped disc at the cervical spine and was advised by her chiro to do soft yoga or gentle, needing to avoid down dog, is it okay if she continues our lit yoga practice? At some point, I kind of know the answer because that's what we highlight in a lot of classes, that neutral spine position and definitely working with the cervical neck flexors to strengthen. But I would like to hear more insights from you both. And this is a great question. Laura, do you want to start off with that one?
Yes. So, first of all, a lot of people say slip disc, and we get this feeling of like this disc slipping out. And that's kind of a layperson's term. It might be bulging, it might be moving in some way that is projecting out into some of the nerve roots that will then give you the feeling of pain or numbness or tingling. So, I think it's important that we really clarify what that is. It's not like the discs are heartily in place. They have a strong collagenous structure. The outer ring is very strong, but it can be compressed and pushed because it needs to, and that helps. But if it's pushed in one direction a lot, say with your posture or something, then that's where it can kind of venture out from where it's kind of structurally first originating, and then compress on some things. So number one, know that that disc can go back, but you have to address why it was pressed out. Sometimes this can happen when someone has like a very acute traumatic thing, like a whiplash. Otherwise, and we see this all the time, it is just habitually, time over time, that the pressure systems in the cervical spine are not symmetrical and it's loading one area. It often is doing it in the transitional places. But now I think we're seeing it in every, it used to be like C6, C7, occasionally C4, C5, C5, C6. I think now we can see it in a variety of places just because of this forward head, and it can get it even higher. So the first thing is, yes, lit is going to be absolutely great. What I would not recommend for somebody with a herniated disc is pressure. Headstands, plow, we don't do any of that stuff. So that might, maybe the chiro is meaning soft yoga. I'm not sure what that means by that. Down dog should be a wonderful pose because it's tractioning with the weight of your skull. So I'm not sure where that came in. And that to me seems a little fear-mongering, like it should be absolutely fine. Where you want to be careful is where you're loading your hands and your neck is not able to align well with the thoracic spine and then the scapula on the ribs, because that could, if your head is really dumping down, it can put a lot of strain in the very area that herniation is. So those things have to be really attended to, meaning trying to find a more neutral cervical spine when there's weight bearing in a more horizontal plane. With down dog, you already having like the traction and effect of the neck, so it should be fine. And then just not really overly lifting and a lot of extension. That might actually help, but it needs to be in certain positions. So not necessarily when you're weight bearing, like in a cobra. I would just advise looking ahead, not lifting the chin, because it can compress. There's just not enough space in that particular pose. But over time, when the spine is in alignment, it might feel really nice to get some of that extension and maybe help some of the cervical vertebrae to kind of push more anteriorly, because they might have been pushed posteriorly, which happens, and that's where you get that little kind of hump in your neck. So it's what I would say is, as not a physical therapist, but as a lit trained teacher, use your wisdom. And when you don't feel clear on something, just give the permission or give the power to the person. We do not want to lead with fear. That is just never going to serve anybody. How does this feel for you? Does that feel compressive? Do you feel any discomfort, any of the nerviness? So, and if you feel that, come out of it. Like, it's really good because we're teaching them for a very small percentage of their day. Ultimately, everybody needs to be kind of empowered of how to take care of themselves. But learning that triple S, getting up against the wall, getting some space in the lower cervical spine, between the cervical spine and the skull, super important. Anything?
Yeah. Well, and I also want to remind people that, whenever you get an MRI, it's a snapshot and it will reflect your posture and your muscle spasms. So you can appear to have a slipped disc, quote unquote, a disc herniation. And if you would go back the very next day, get an MRI, find yourself, and then you're able to get into a triple S, that nice long, and it wouldn't show up because, the discs, to your point, Laura, they're situated in there, but they move. So if you are in this, you've kinked your neck for whatever, and you're in this weird kind of posture, and then you go lie down in a super uncomfortable position for 30 minutes while they do this thing, and you got a lot of stress and nervousness, and maybe pain is going down your arm. I don't trust the MRI because yes, it's telling us what they saw at that moment. It is a good indication, especially if it correlates. If you've got this right-sided herniation, bulge, whatever, with right arm symptoms. But and oftentimes I see it's just the opposite. I'm like, well, that says it's on the left and your symptoms it really just, so I would, again, to your fear-mongering point, Laura, let's educate our clients not to put so much stock in that MRI because it's scary. I mean, it's scary. And the fear of movement, when in fact movement is a lot of times what they need. I agree with you about the down dog. The only thing I could think of is because as soon as you said, I was like, yep, that traction, if she has some thoracic outlet and that would be impinging in that position, but I still think 9 times out of 10 down dog, you get that tractioning of the neck would feel nice. So I agree with you. He was thinking of yoga in terms of traditional yoga that does just tend to, I think, put the body in less optimal positions and less strong. Even Chio said, we're working deep cervical flexors. We're working the strength that, quite frankly, her client needs to help her heal from this injury. And pushing that boundary of movement into discomfort. I love how you said, talk to her. How does this feel? Does this feel compressive? Does this reproduce your symptoms? If something reproduces her symptoms, the first thing I would do is try to modify that movement and see, does that take it away? And if I'm unable to modify and she still has it, then I'm like, you know what? We're not going to do this for now. We're going to come back to it, but we're not going to do it for now because we don't want to provoke the symptoms. But 100% lit, the way we teach it, is very, very safe for the neck. Traditional yoga, if there's something going on, muscle spasm, a facet joint that's locked, a disc that is herniated, can be less optimal for a neck. Absolutely, the headstands, the plow pose, the looking up towards the sky to feel more spiritual. Let's be honest. That's just not ideal. And I'm not saying don't ever do it. You want to be able to do that, but don't do it over and over and over again just because someone told you to. In my lit classes, I will put in motions that people kind of look at me like, oh, it's coming out of neutral. And it's like, it's okay to come out of neutral. You just want to always be able to come back to your north. And that's what we really focus on. And that is true for the spine. That's true for every joint. Shoulder, finding scapular neutral, finding a centrated humerus, the hip, finding that ability to stabilize the pelvis. So I think she kind of said, like, I think I know the answer, but I want some more information. So you got this. And I hope we helped out a little more.
Yeah. And I will say, just assuming that not everybody knows triple S, because I know sometimes people pop on as new listeners. Triple S stands for the skull, the scapula, and the sacrum. And those are the primary curves of the body. And when they're really in alignment, that's a spectrum, they're not, but when they're in alignment, that is a neutral spine. So that's putting the head in the best position, the skull on the top of the cervical spine. And so using your own hands, like bringing your hand behind your skull, moving your head back without double chinning it, but trying to open up the space where the skull meets the neck, and maybe a hand on the front ribs to stabilize against the counter movement forward. That can be a way throughout the day that this person can start to really find that position, because it's really the other things in her life that have brought her to this point.
Right.
And our practice is a place where she can re-educate and change that. And that's what's really wonderful, but it has to like carry over into daily life as well. All right. Suze M asks, better to work out in the morning or later in the day? I'll answer this question right away because I've actually done a podcast on it. There's a lot of research, and there's more research that's come out more recently, and there's benefits mostly from a metabolic standpoint based on where you work out. What I always say is work out when you're going to be consistent. I mean, and it's kind of like, do what you love, do what brings you joy. These seem kind of they seem kind of logical and intuitive, but a lot of people think that they need to do something that they see. Oh, I need to start doing whatever, this kind of exercise, and this person wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, and I should do that. If it works in your schedule and you're consistent, then do it based on that. I have many people who, Kristen has, that want to do it in the morning because it sets the day, it starts the energy flow, it carries them into the day. And the other thing is, I don't want to say it's a checklist and it's over, but it's done in the sense that it started the engines. And so if you don't get too much more other activity in, you at least know you've started off, you've front loaded. I mean, the goal is ultimately to continue other stuff, but I know this person's asking in terms of like a workout practice. So I'm trying to be specific to that. If it works better for you, like I don't have time in the morning for whatever reason, and I need to just put it in my day, there are benefits to doing it in early afternoon and even the evening. It may help you fall asleep better. It may not. That's where you have to figure out, like, if I work out later in the day, how is it impacting my sleep? And then what do I feel like all day waiting until that time to work out? And how many times do I wait and it doesn't happen? And then I feel like a negative feedback loop, because what we're always trying to do is work with our body, with our systems, with our brain to just maximize energy and joy. So I know for me, if I had to wait until 5, it is a 10% chance, unless I'm scheduled to teach, that it's going to happen. I start to kind of throttle down after 3. Now I might take my dog for a walk or stuff like that, but I know that's to me I would never be consistent. So that when you're going to be the most consistent is the number one time. And then there are some advantages, in terms of like fat burning and caloric stuff that I'm not going to really get into because that's not really my wheelhouse. But you can look that up, like if that's what you're interested in. But the number one thing is, when are you going to be consistent?
And that might change. I mean, I know, when my kids were little and I was breastfeeding, or, I was not doing it in the morning because I had to breastfeed and get that weight off my chest. And then I was doing it around 3:00. And that was also because I would go for a run with my friend. We would do it together. And so that worked for us. I couldn't do it in the morning. I would pump, go run. It was great. The kids got a little older and I joined a gym where they had daycare. So I was like, yay, it gave me that time, to be like, here you go. And then I would do it later then. It has definitely changed. As Laura said, I am certainly a morning person. For example, I have a lot of private clients and classes that I teach in the morning. This week, my regular 5:30 a.m. private client is on spring break. So I didn't set my alarm. I was like, woohoo, sleep in. But I knew I had my next one at 8 a.m. And I woke up when my husband's alarm, and I kind of woke up anyway. I was waking up, but I was like, no, I'm going to take advantage of it. 6:45, I was like, all right, I'm really pushing it here. Can I get one in? And I'm looking at I look at my calendar. I pull up my calendar and I looked, when can I fit my workout in? So it is a scheduling thing. I'm like you, Laura. I hit that 3, 4 o'clock. That's when I got to go pick up my daughter. That's when I'm just ramping down. So I freaking laced up my shoes, ran down, turned on the treadmill, got on there, and I felt so happy that I did it. I had a great run, jumped in the shower, whatever, got through, but I scheduled it. I absolutely picked up my phone and looked at, what do I have today? I was pretty sure that I'm booked all the way till 3 p.m. I was like, well, then I got to go get Bailey. Then I'm not going to want to do it because I'm going to want to hang out with my daughters. So it might be different every day.
And
Schedule it.
let me add on to this, because we are, I think, real models of movement and good habits. But I want to also say, like, it is something I do because I know the impact, not necessarily that I want to do in the moment. Like,
Right.
sometimes I'd rather hang out in bed. And it's when in Costa Rica, we were in Costa Rica and we practiced before I taught. And it was a little bit easier every day because we were getting to bed earlier. But it was just like, it's not like I'm
You
like, let's
sprung
go.
out of bed.
I mean, I'm coming, I'm getting my coffee,
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. But so if you're also like, well, I never really look forward to it, that's okay as long as you keep doing it, because your
Yep.
brain knows the positive impact. So it doesn't mean that you're going to be cheerio, let's go every time. I think
No.
that's really important to realize, even for us that are so dedicated to movement. We have it so ingrained that that we're going to feel, we know the we know the impact, so we come back because of that. But
That
if
is
it's
absolutely right. I didn't want to get up. I wanted to lay in my bed and read
Yeah.
my book.
Yeah.
But I was like, I will regret. I know I'll feel better. And then, to your point, I'm going to be stressing about it later, and then I might let myself down, because it's just, I know it makes me feel better, and I know it's good for me too.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
think this is really
it's for me.
important. We can feel bad about something, but not punish ourselves. So this
Yeah.
is different. Like, we are moving because we know mentally, emotionally, and yes, physically, we are better. We are better people. And when it doesn't happen, it's okay. We can be disappointed. That doesn't mean I'm going to be like, you're such a shitty person. I can't believe you didn't do it. Now you can't eat any, no, I'll just get back to it tomorrow. So don't get in this habit of berating yourself if you aren't consistent. That's not going to do any good. What you want to do is just realize, why? Why do I keep coming here? Well, I know I handle life way better when I'm taking care of myself in the form of moving.
I agree.
Yay. All right. So know your why. I guess that's our final word here. Know your why, and know that we are pulling for you. But we're not
Always.
signing off yet. We're going to tell you to first rate, review, subscribe, and please share this podcast. It is an award-winning podcast. Yay. And it really does help. And so if it's helped you in any way, and just do us a favor and share it with people, and drop a review. If you have questions of your own, as you can see, we'll answer any question. We might not be experts on it, but we'll try and just bring our own experience into it. You can write us at support@lityoga.com, or
you can reach us on social media. You can reach Laura at laura.hyman, or I'm KB Williams 99. That's our Instagram handles. You can also reach out to our Redefining Yoga podcast Instagram and drop a DM there, and they will forward it to us. So know that we are always at reach, within reach. That's the word I'm looking for. And happy to help, because a lot of people, they count on this. They listen to it every Wednesday. It's in their practice, and they don't know what the questions are going to be, but we all learn from each other. So no question is stupid, because you'd be surprised the number of people, you probably hear it like, oh, I've always wondered that too, or I feel the same thing. So put it out there. Help the world by educating. That's what we're trying to do, and you're allowing us to do that.
Thank you so much. We're pulling for you.